All right. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I hope you're able to see me, hear me, and also see the screen. And yes, I think let us go ahead and get started with the session. Now, there are a couple of quick updates for you before we get started. So let me actually share those first, and then we'll actually jump into the content for the day. So I have connected with the team just before the session, and there are a couple of updates that you need to know. And I also got to know a couple of things which are as follows. Number one is that there have been, I think, 3 sessions already where someone from the team has explained to you how to do things on tap. So regarding how to submit the abstract, regarding how to see your project details, regarding all of those things, I have been informed that there have already been multiple sessions for you guys where everything has been explained to you clearly as to what needs to be done. Now, if you did not join those sessions, then I can't really help. But there have been, I think, as far as I know, 3 sessions from the team regarding this. The abstract for your projects has to be submitted on TAP itself. So there is no Google form, there is no external form that is going to be there. You have to log into TAP. Over there, you will find a submission link for the project abstract. You have to submit it over there. So please note this down. Please listen to this very carefully. Again, there is no direct link that I can provide you, but the project abstracts have to be submitted on TAP. So you can stop checking your emails, log into TAP, and there you should be able to find the link for abstract submission. So it will be like an assignment or an assessment kind of a submission, right? So that is the first thing that I hope everybody has done, because again, the first question in the chat is still that we have not received abstract submission thing. So I hope Rehmat Basha, I hope this is clear for you now. You have to submit the abstract on TAP. So please log into TAP. You will find the submission link over there, and please go ahead and submit. Again, I am not going to spend time on this. It has been explained to you. I have asked the team to give me the link of the video where this was explained, and I will share that video on the repository. I will add that on the repository. But I have been told that everything has been explained in that session, including the DB schema submission, including how to upload the project, including how to access your team member details, how to see which project was allocated to you, everything. So there has been multiple sessions where everything has been explained to you already by the team, right? Not in my sessions. There have been separate sessions for this that have been conducted by the team. I was not aware of this until now, but now that I know, then it is now up to you guys, right? So if we are conducting sessions additionally to explain things to you, then you should have attended those sessions and you should have understood how that needs to be done, right? Anyhow, I have asked the team to check if those sessions were recorded. And if I get a recording of those sessions, I will add it to the repository so that you will have an exact idea of how to do everything. So everything has been explained over there, right? All the way from how to submit your project abstract to how to submit the DB schema, first round, second round submission, how to see your team details, how to see your project details. Everything has been already explained to you in those sessions, right? There have been multiple sessions for that. So as of this point, from my end or from our end, we have done everything that we possibly could to make this easier for you to understand, right? And explain the entire process to you. So again, hopefully I will get the recording. If it was recorded, then I will go ahead and I will actually upload it to the repository as well. So that is the update on the project front. The second update is regarding the assignments, the daily assessments that a lot of you asked about. The daily assessments are actually shared on your emails. So please check your emails. They are sent out every day. It is not possible for me to collect the link every day and update it every day. So those assessments are being sent to you on your emails, right? So for the assessments, please check your emails and you can get the links over there. Now, it is important to note that the assessments are really necessary for you to practice things, right? They will really help you in order to improve on your skills. And also that employability check assessment also is something that you should definitely try to attempt. Maybe not all of them, but try to give one or two things to begin with. If an assignment link is not working, it probably means that the deadline for that assignment has expired. So please don't worry about it. Try to submit the assignments that are working, because all assignments have a deadline. And if they are not submitted within the deadline, then the links become disabled. Basically, it is only for those who have submitted in time. Again, Ahmed Basha, I do not know how to submit the abstract on tap. That has been explained to you in another session. I will be uploading a video for that as well. So once that video is uploaded, you can check that out. But if somebody did join that session and if you have the link of that session, please share it in the chat. That will be really helpful. If you were a part of that session and if you have the session invite or the link on WhatsApp, please send it here if possible so that everybody can use that. So this is for both people on YouTube Live as well as Zoom chat. If anybody here has that link on your WhatsApp or email, please send it in the chat if possible so that everybody else can also see. Again, so this is some roll number 0511. So yes, again, the submission details, the project will be submitted as a hackathon. So let me answer this question as well. Right? For every project, what we have done is we have created a hackathon on tap. So just like you submit any other React assessment or you have submitted those assignments before, in the exact same way, the project will be submitted as a hackathon. So this will happen after you complete the project. So then we will enable the hackathon for some time. All you have to do is just open it up, upload your files and submit. So we are going to take the project submission as a hackathon link. So that is going to be in that setup. I hope that has answered your question. And now, yes, so there are two links in the chat. Let me actually try to open them and share them on screen if possible, so we can see if we are able to access that. So let's see. Yes, there you go. So this is it, right? Here is your setup and all the project details along with the URLs, as you can see, are given over here. So as you can see, this is a hackathon. Now I don't have an account, but once you log into your account, you should be able to go over there and your project will be treated as a hackathon. You can see this is a public link, so everybody can access it even without login. And you have to find your team or your details, right? So you can go to this option, which is check your team, right? Over here, you have to put your registration number and you can search by your registration number. So you can see everybody's names are here. This is a very big form. Some 1,000 names are there, right? 1,100 names are there. So you can just Command F or Control F and put your registration number. You can see it will be here. Some registration number is available. And based on this, you can find your respective team details as well as your project details, right? So once you find your project details from here, so for example, if this is your project title, then you can go back to the previous link and then search for your project. You can see this is your project details. So I have explained this again, so you can access it from there, right? Finally, you also have one more option here, which is register your team. So in case you have not registered your team, this is for you, even though it is very late for this now, but you have an option for registration as well. So I hope this helps. Again, the URL, I will put this in the chat as well. So here you can go and find the hackathon for your project also, and you can find your team members, you can find your project details as well. So this is the link that you can definitely check out and access for all of these details. I will put this link in Zoom chat also. I will add this in the repository also. And I will also put this in the YouTube chat as well. I don't know why YouTube chat does not take it as a clickable URL, but yes, so that is done. Now, for people who have just joined, let me also quickly repeat it one more time. There were multiple additional sessions that were conducted by Nagarjuna, and he has explained everything in those sessions: how to submit the project abstract, how to submit the DB schema, how to submit the design. Everything has already been explained in those sessions. So again, I'm asking this openly for everybody. in case, obviously, some of you attended those sessions. If you are here, please put a link to that session in the chat if you have it. I have also asked for the link. So if I get the link after the session, I will quickly add that as well. So again, the DB schema submission has been explained, the code submission has been explained, the project abstract submission has been explained, everything as has been explained as well, right? So I will try to get that video and I will add it to the repository as well. But it will not be possible to explain this every day, right? You ask the same questions every day, and those sessions have also been conducted. So again, it has been discussed already. So it is not possible, that we keep conducting those sessions every day. And again, Rahul, it is not possible that you were not informed. The sessions were for you, right? So it is impossible. I don't believe that you were not informed. It could be that you might have missed the email, you might have missed the notification. But obviously, if we send it to one person, we send it to everybody. And if one person joins, then that means everybody could have joined, right? So there could be something that might have went wrong, but I am not ready to believe that you were missed out or we did not send an invite. That is not possible, right? Now coming to the YouTube questions. So let me quickly answer those as well, and then we'll jump to the session. So on YouTube, I have 3 questions. The first is regarding assignments again. So you guys don't worry about the assignment links if they are not working. Again, I'm repeating, if an assignment link is not working, it probably means that the deadline for submitting the assignment has expired and you will no longer be able to submit it. So if a link is not working, don't worry about it. Try to submit the assignments that are working. So try to open all assignments, and whichever assignment link is working, please try to submit that. Right. So I hope that answers the assignment question. The second question is regarding daily test. Again, the same thing. And yes, so I've already pasted the link in YouTube, Sandeep. It does not take it as a link for some reason. I will add it to the repository as well. So that way you can access that, right? Again, the abstract submission was already due on Monday. So we are already running behind because we wanted to give you a full month to create your projects. But now that things are getting delayed from the submission point of view, it will then mean that you will get less time for the project. So there is nothing that I can do to help it. But yes, the abstract, again, please let me know in the chat for people who have submitted the abstracts finally, because again, there were sessions conducted, everything was done properly now. So please let me know, just put a yes in the chat if you have submitted your project abstract already. There we go. So we have people who have submitted the abstracts. So for people who have not submitted the abstracts, now that is on you, right? It is your responsibility to check how to submit it. It is your responsibility to find out where to submit it. And please do that, right, as soon as possible. Because like I said, the due date for abstract has already passed. It was due by Monday, right? But yes, I hope you are able to submit it soon, right? Perfect. Now coming to the schema submission. So for people who are asking how to submit the schema, again, I have asked for a video explaining how this is done. As soon as I get that video, I will share it with you, and then I will go ahead and I will share it. So I don't have the video yet. I don't know how to submit the schema yet, but as soon as I get that update, I will let you know. For now, my focus is on the abstracts. So for people who have not submitted the abstracts, you have to log into TAP and there you have to submit your abstract. I've also shown you on the screen just now how to find your team members, how to find your project title, all of those things. So I have done that already, and the link is also shared. I'll add the link to the repository as well. So done. Perfect. Now coming to the repository itself. Now, when it comes to the repository, right, what happens is I have updated the repository again. So if I just show that to you quickly, then I have added the revision sessions code over there. And I've also added the recording as well. So the recording is added. I've also added this one folder for the revision session code. So that's there. And I've also added one more reference for you, which is the deployment video. So we already discussed this in the session also. I have shown you how to deploy the app on Netlify, but still for your reference so that you don't have to run around finding the video. I have added that over here as well. So that's the fourth reference for you. I'm creating one more video for deployment of Express. So I will add that as well. Again, for people who are asking abstract submission for the last time, I am repeating this. You have to log in to Tap. When you log into Tap over there, you will find a link for abstract submission. That is where you have to submit your abstract. That's it. I am not answering this question anymore. That is the final time I am answering that. Perfect. Again, so there are 4 videos now. The first one is a React reference, then Express reference for the backend, then MongoDB for the database, and then the deployment thing over here. I'm working on adding 2 more videos. One is Express deployment, and then 2 is a full integration. So how do you combine everything together? How do you put React, Express, Mongo, everything in one project? So I'm trying to create those 2 videos. Hopefully within this week, I will be able to create those and upload those as well. So again, I am trying to give you these resources from my side. I would really recommend you to also use these videos, use these resources so that you are actually able to create the project in the given deadline, right? The deadline for the project is the last day of April. So basically the month of April is the deadline. So by the end of April, you have to submit your project. Done. Now let us go ahead and start get back to the content for the session. So yesterday, if you remember, we've talked about HTML in the session. And today we'll quickly talk about forms in HTML and then we'll move to CSS. So we'll just understand how to work with forms quickly and then we'll start off with CSS, right? So I'll just open the same code. Again, I am not answering repeat questions in the chat now. I've already answered them enough number of times. So I'm really sorry, but it does not make sense to keep repeating the same thing for the entire duration of the session. Let me just find that folder. Let me just go ahead and rename it. And yes, I'll open this up so that I can upload the same thing directly. So yes, this is where we left off yesterday and we are starting it off from there itself. So we've discussed all other HTML things, including media, including tables and everything. And the only thing that we were left with was a form, right? So how do forms work in HTML? So let me quickly show them to you now. And then of course, you will take a look at CSS. So we have the form tab, opening, closing form, right? Now there is this action attribute that we don't really use anymore when we used to, when we had PHP based websites or when we had other technologies that we use for the backend, we needed to actually specify where the logic of the form is written in this action attribute. And we also have something called ENC type, which is if the is the format a plain text form, is the form going to contain a media file, stuff like that. But now with React, what we do is we handle the form data using hooks, right? So remember we had the use state hook to handle the data of the form. So that is why what we don't really do is that we don't use these attributes anymore. We still use the form tag, absolutely, but we don't specify those attributes because React does not really need them. But again, if you use other technologies like say PHP or maybe Python, you might have to specify that. But for our purposes, for MERN Stack, MERN Stack, we don't really need them. Perfect. Now let us go ahead and start working with the form. So the only thing we need to know about the form, primarily 80% of the form is the input tag. And the input basically gives us a field, form field on the screen. And there are different types of inputs that are available. The very first type of input that we have is a text input, right? So if I just open it up in browser now, we should be able to find our form at the bottom. As you can see, let me actually add a bunch of space so that we can actually see it better. And that should do it. Yes, so there you go. This is our form. And by default, if we don't specify any type, then it is of the type or text, input type equal to text, right? So that's the setup. Then the next couple of attributes here, we have placeholder. So this is the default text that is available on the input field. So this one, as you can see, is enter the name. And then we can go ahead and we can type whatever we want over there. The default value that shows up, that is the placeholder. After the placeholder, we have other properties depending on what the field is. So if it is a text field, then we can have length. So that's min length and max length, right? So min length would mean what are the minimum number of characters required, and max length would mean what are the maximum number of characters required. So minimum 10 characters, maximum 100 characters in this case, right? So this is how the text field is. These are the major attributes that we have. And then of course we have the name field, which is what we specify in order to link this to our backend, connect this to our backend. So we can say for user name, for example, or first name, whatever it is that we're trying to create, we can give this a custom value, right? In addition to this, what we can also do is we can create a label for this input field. So for this, we create label. Label can again be the same thing. So first name, and then the way we connect this is we use the ID. So we specify ID. Let's say the ID is first name. So then we say label for first name. Okay. This is how this particular label gets connected to this particular input. How can we check this? Let me show you. So now if you see, if I click on the first name, I'm not clicking on the input field. I'm clicking on the first name, and still the cursor is highlighted for the input field. So right now I can't type, the cursor is not on the form. If I click on the label, even then the input text cursor gets highlighted, right? You can of course directly highlight it, but to check if the label is connected to the input properly, we can click on the label and that will also give us access to the cursor, right? So this indicates that the label is working as expected, right? So again, we do label for, and then we specify that ID in the input field. So this ID is what is used to connect the label with the respective input field, right? Then the next couple of things are several different types of input fields. So now the different types of input fields that we have are, let's say the next one that we use most often is password. Again, the same attributes apply: placeholder, name, maximum length. The difference is in the case of password, the text is hidden, or we call it obscure. So this text is hidden, it's bulleted out. So this is your password field, right? So that's the input type password. Then after this, we have another input which is very common, which is number. So if you choose number, then you get these up and down arrows which increment or decrement them one by one, right? And then for number, we have min and max. So minimum 10, maximum 100, for example. So these values will now go only from 10 to 100. I can't go beyond 100 and I can't go below 10, right? Finally, we also have one more attribute called value. So value is the actual content of the field. So if I put value equal to default, then this will be the value filled into the field. So I can remove that, right? So again, similarly, we can have a value here also. We can have a value here also. Either way. So we have the value attribute as well, right? Then we have several other fancier inputs as well. For example, we have something called input type equal to a range, right? And this gives us a range, right? So this is basically a slider that we get. Again, we can specify minimum, maximum over here. Let's say we start with 1. So minimum is 1, maximum is 5, right? And then we can specify step. So step is how much can you skip. So if I specify 1, then I can only go from 1 to 5. I can't go say 1.5 or 2.5 in steps of 1. So this would indicate we can only move in steps of 1, right? Blocks of 1. So that is min, max, and step. And then we can go to the next one. So again, there are so many different types of inputs, but then we have something called radio. So this radio is basically the selection that we use, right? And here we have to give them a common name. So let us say that we are choosing the radio is payment method. Name is payment method, and we can create 3, for example. So let's say this is, let's say, debit card. We should use label for this. I will use that. But for now, let's say QR code and then cash. Okay, we have 3 options. So you can see these are the 3 bullet or radio buttons that show up for us. Now, what we do is if we remove the name from them, then all of them become clickable. And obviously that is not what we want, right? So we don't want all of them to be clickable at the same time. So you can see now I can choose all 3, which is incorrect. I should never be able to choose all 3. This is why we use the name here. So the name will basically tell the browser that only one of these 3 must be chosen. Okay. We can have individual labels for them though. So for example, we can have a label and this can then go into the label. And then we can say label for, let's say, debit card. And then the same thing can be written here as an ID. So that ID can be, but now this will become, the label will become. So even if I click on the label, I should be able to select the bullet. As you can see, if I click on the debit D also, it still chooses the bullet. It does not happen for QR code and cache because they are not labels. So that's the difference between using a label and not using a label. But yes, you can use labels like this. Then we have a checkbox. So again, we typically use a label for that. Agree to terms, right? And then we make the input type equal to checkbox. And then we say for and then ID, and we give the same thing in both. So let's say we say agree done. So now this becomes a checkbox. Again, you can either click on the box itself or on the label. Either way, it works fine. So this is our checkbox. And then we have two more things that are used primarily. One of them is drop down, and then the second one is a bigger text input. So for drop down, we have something called select. The select tag is a drop down. So as soon as I put select, you can see a drop down shows up. Now here inside select, we can have options. So let's say choice one, and we can have as many options as we want. So we have these options and they now show up in the drop down. Now this drop down interface is different for different browsers. So if you open the same thing in Edge, you will see a different interface. If you open the same thing in Safari, you will see a different interface. On Chrome, it looks like this. On Windows, it look different. On Mac, it look different. So there are different things available on different browsers, right? Then we can also make a default selection. So let's say I change to 3 and 4. Then if you want option 3 to be selected by default, we can put an attribute called selected. So you can see now that choice 3 is the default selection. So in a similar way, we can have the checkbox checked and we can have this one as also on. So I think we can also put it selected. There should be some attribute for this as well, right, which makes the radio button selected by default. Anyway, so we can find that in the documentation, but that is also available. So you can now see the checkbox is selected by default and choice 3 is selected by default, right? So that is what we have here. Now, the next thing that we have is the text area. So this is a bigger text area. It looks like this, and we can expand it further if we want to. And we can add bigger pieces of in bigger paragraphs and bigger chunks in this one. This works with the help of rows and columns. So we can specify how many rows we want in terms of height, the number of rows, and in terms of width, the number of columns. So we can specify those, and you can now see it is worth 20 rows and 100 columns. And again, we can reduce or add them depending on our requirements. We can also not put them, and that will use the default values as well. So it's actually up to us, however much we want. Everything else works here also. So placeholder will work, maximum length will work, everything will work for the text area as well. Then there are a couple of additional properties or additional attributes. For example, we have the required attribute. So we have to specify required, right? Otherwise, it will not. So it will not submit until you have it, right? We have not seen the submit button yet, but that is required. So it means you can't leave this empty. For example, we typically use it for the checkbox. Right? The checkbox must be checked. If it is not checked, you can't submit it. You have to agree to the terms and conditions. Similarly, we can use it for all other fields as well. There's also input type email. I forgot to mention that one. So input type email is also available, right? Then we have another thing called read only. So in some cases, if you're fetching values from somewhere else, and if you only want the user to be able to read that value and don't want them to be able to modify them, that would mean we can use read only. So let us assume that my email is coming from a third party, or you have already logged in and I'm just showing that this is your email. We can specify it as read only. So this email field, let me put a dummy value as well. Let's say hello@gmail.com. And now if I check the email out, I will not be able to modify that. I can select it, I can copy it, I can do everything else with it, but I cannot modify it. So this is a read only field. So again, these are some of the major things. We also have other things like color pickers, time pickers as well. And then finally, we have three types of buttons. So the first one is a normal button that you can create like this, right? So this is the normal input button. If the button is within a form, right? So we have to give it a value as well. Let's say submit, and this will be type equal to submit. So input type equal to submit. This is a submit button. We can also have a normal HTML button, which will also submit the form as long as it is within a form tag. So this submit, as you can see, also triggers the form submission. So we can either use input type equal to submit or a direct button which says submit. This will also behave like a submit button, but it is technically more accurate to use this one. Then we have another button for reset. Will basically just reset everything that the user has given in the form. So let's call it reset. And now if I have, let's say, selected some things, I've added some text here and then password, etc. When I reset, it will remove everything. It will reset the form, right? So this is everything that we need to know in terms of the form in HTML. Again, like I said, we have a date selection, time selection, all those things are also available. There are 2 dozen different inputs. You can check out the documentation for more. Perfect. So this is how we work with forms. Again, I will let this code be. So when I upload today's code, the form code will come with it. Right. Now, the next part that we're discussing is CSS. And the first thing that we have to understand is the role that CSS plays. We have already seen that CSS does 3 very important tasks. The first task that CSS does is it allows us to style the HTML content. Right. So first task, styling the HTML content. The second task that CSS does is it allows us to arrange content on the page, right? So move things around, position them on the page, arrange them on the page as and how we want it. And finally, the third thing that CSS does is responsiveness. It helps us make a web page responsive. Now we can use libraries like Bootstrap and other options to make it for us. But again, at the end of the day, they are also using CSS to achieve that, right? So in effect, CSS is basically allowing us 3 things, right? Adding things to the page. Number 2, CSS adding styles to the page. Then CSS allows us to arrange things. And then CSS allows us to make things responsive. We have already discussed this as well, but let me quickly repeat it and then I'll give you a challenge before I discuss any CSS code. It is about adding CSS to HTML, right? So we have already seen that there are 3 different ways in which CSS can be added to HTML. 3 different ways, right? We have something called external CSS, then we have internal CSS and inline CSS. Let me quickly show that to you and then I'll give you a challenge to work with. First up, for external CSS, we have an external CSS file. So I've created it. It is called styles.css. Now, this is the default name that we give. It is not mandatory that you have to call it styles.css. You can call it whatever you want. It is actually up to you. And again, if you have multiple styles, then you can create a folder called styles. And let's say you want to create about.css. So if you want to create multiple styles, for example, let's say you want to create a CSS for every page. So then you can create inside the styles folder, we can create about.css, we can create contact.css and so on and so on. There is no limit to the number of CSS files that we can have. But typically the file that we create for the index is called styles.css. Again, it's a convention thing. It is up to you. Whatever name you want, you can give it. And then how do we connect this? Well, we use the link tag within the head section, and then we specify the relative folder path. Again, we have to specify the relative folder path here, right? We are not specifying T users, downloads, none of that, only the relative folder path. So if the CSS is inside that folder, then we'll say style/filename.css, just like we do for links and media, right? So that is how we link it. And then whatever styles we write here, they will start showing up on the screen. So I've written this background color, and now you can see that blue back shows up on our screen. Okay. So this is the first way to add CSS. This is external CSS. The second way to add CSS is internal. And let me also specify this. So this is external CSS. Then we have internal CSS. So internal CSS is where we add it within the style tag inside our head. So inside the head tag of the page, we add a style tag. And this is where we can write the CSS. So if I can change the background color to pink now, it will change to pink, right? Because internal CSS gets more preference over external CSS. So this is how we can write that. Finally, we have something called inline CSS. So I'll give you an example of that over here. Inline CSS is where we use the style attribute. So again, external CSS, we create the styles.css file and link it using the link tag. Number 2, internal CSS is where we use the style tag within our head. And then number 3, inline CSS is where we use the style attribute within the element that we have to style. So again, we can specify the same thing here as well. Let's say this is background color. Let's go for yellow. Now, if you notice, yellow will show up on the final output because inline CSS gets more preference. We call it specificity. So inline CSS is more specific. It gets more preference over internal CSS, which in turn gets more preference over external CSS. However, if we have different styles in all three places, for example, over here, if I change the font family to Comic Sans MS, then in my internal CSS, I change the font size, let us say, to say 18 pixels. And then in my inline CSS, I change, say, the background color. Then all of them will show up. You can see here that the yellow background is showing up from the inline CSS. The font colors are showing up from internal, sorry, the font family is showing up from the external CSS. And then this paragraph is 18 pixels in size. This is coming from here, internal CSS. So we have the family from external, the size from internal, and the background color from inline. So as long as they are different styles, all of them will show up. But as long as it's the same style, then the inline CSS gets the most preference over internal, and then that gets more preference over external, right? So this is how we work with the entire CSS setup. I hope this is perfectly clear now. Now, before we continue to the rest of the discussion of CSS, I'll give you a quick assignment here or a quick task here. You can go ahead and try to create this, and then we'll come back and talk a little more about CSS after the break. Not the break, but after the challenge that you are working on. So remember, yesterday we were creating something based on a design. I am showing you the design as well. So this is the design that we have seen yesterday as well. Now, what you have to do is to create the CSS for this. I know it might be a little difficult, but we have discussed these things already. So I want you to give this a try. The starter code, if you wanted the HTML code, it is already available in the revision session 1 on GitHub. I think I already gave you an example. We wrote a very basic version of this yesterday. So you can take that starter code if you want from GitHub or try to write it on your own in both HTML as well as CSS. So I'll give you 15 minutes or so to get this done, and then I'll come back and then we can discuss CSS a bit more. So yes, go ahead and try this out. All right. Hi guys, we are back. So before we continue, let me know in the chat quickly, were you actually able to get this output or you solve this challenge or not? Just put a yes, completed, something like that in the chat so that I know whether you were able to do it or not, and then we'll continue. Great. So I see a couple of people saying yes in the chat. That is good. Now, there are a couple of quick CSS things that we will discuss, right? And then we'll more or less take questions on the project if you have anything that I can help with. So I'll mostly work with external CSS, and this is the norm. We typically write 95% of the styles in an external style sheet. And then out of that, we write the other 5-6% maybe in the internal one. And if needed, 1% inline if needed. Otherwise, we completely skip inline or ignore inline and only work with internal and external, where external gets preference. Because again, the idea is to separate concerns, right? So the more separated the concerns are in terms of the file structure, the better it is. We don't want to put everything in one file. The more spread out it is, the better for management and maintenance in a longer run. Now, the very first thing that we will discuss in CSS is these two attributes, right? They are also selectors that are available in CSS. So I'm sure you know about these already, but we have IDs and classes. We've already discussed IDs when we were working with form. Remember here we created IDs. IDs are used to individually recognize an element on the page. What that means is the same ID cannot, the ID is unique. No two elements can have the same ID. So the same ID cannot be shared by multiple elements. One element can have one ID can only be taken by one element on one page. If you're talking about another page, then it's a different story. Again, one element on the other page can have the same ID, right? But within the page, there can only be one instance of one of any particular ID. And then classes can be repeated, right? Which means that more elements, more than one element, can have the same class. They can also be different types of elements. So for example, one heading, one paragraph, and one button could belong to the same class. It need not be that only H1 can have the same class or only P can have the same class. Any elements can have the same class. as long as we want the styling to be the same, for example. Right? That is how it works. Again, the best way to remember it is a student ID, just like all of you here. So I think we have some 300, 350 people, right? So all 350 of us have individual student IDs, and then, but all of us belong to the common class, which is this IIDT Division Session 2, for example. So this is the best way to remember classes and IDs or understand classes and IDs. Each student has an individual ID given by the university, but multiple students belong to the same class. That is how it works, right? Now, there are four basic selectors that brings us to the next step. The first selector is this one, which is the element selector. Then there is something called the universal selector, which looks like this star. And this basically is used for something like a font family, where we would want everything on the page to get the same font. We would go for the universal selector. We'll also remove that yellow. I think I'll just remove this color from here. I'll comment out the other background colors as well so that stays to white. And yes, so now that is the first selector. We call it the global selector or the universal selector, right? So this is our universal. Again, this is how we write fonts in CSS. So this is the universal selector. Then this is the element selector. We also call it the tag selector or the HTML selector. So these are the terms. The most common term is this one, element selector. Then the next selector that we have is the class selector. So selectors in CSS are used to select or decide which elements on the page are to be selected, right? So the class selector is dot class name and then the styles. And then the ID selector is hash or pound sign of then the name of the ID and then followed by the CSS, right? So this is how we can use classes and keys. Let me give you a quick example. Let us say that H1, H3, and H5 belong to a common class called underline this, for example. And let us say that we have one span which can also belong to the same class and maybe one list item that also belongs to the same class. So you can see we have different types of elements, different headings. So three different elements. Then we have the span and then we have the li. They are very different elements, but still they can have a common class. And then here the class name I will change and I can write text decoration underline, right? So this should now underline those selected things. You can see H1, H3, H5 they are underlined. Then this span is underlined, right? And then this list item is also underlined. So you can see it is working fine. I think that EA is not closed somewhere. Uh, there, the EA tag is not closed. That's why everything is showing up as italics. But anyway, no worries. So this is our setup. Now this is done. So then we have an ID. Let us take the first heading. For example, say this can get an ID. This is, let's say, page type. And then this can be used. Again, we can style it like this as an ID. And let us say that give this on a background color of yellow. Now this will work fine. And again, the ID is unique, which means it will only stay, it can only show up once on the page. So we cannot repeat this ID anywhere else. It will work though. So technically speaking, HTML will not give us any error. We can go for ID equal to page title and it will work fine. Right. And it will also style both of those things. As you can see, the paragraph is also styled. The heading is also styled. And we will not see any errors as such in the console either. But again, the idea is to use those. You can see there are no errors in the console as well. But of course, we should be using good code practices. And this is bad code, right? So it is up to us to follow these practices. The React will give you a problem. When you do the same thing in React, there we will face a problem. It will give you an error, right? But otherwise, yeah, I show up once on the page. So I will write code and I will remove it. So we only have one instance of that ID available over here. So these are the four basic selectors that we have. And the last thing is we can also multiple selectors, or we can also use multiple selectors together. So for example, we can say H2, H4, H6, and then we can say, let's say we change their size to 20 pixels, for example. So now this will affect all three heading. You can see H3, H2, H4, and H6. All of them now become 20 pixels in size, right? So it is possible that the same style can affect multiple elements as well. And this is how we do it. So we could either put them in a class and then apply the style to the class, or if it's just one out of those one thing, that we have to do, then we can just combine multiple selectors like this. So this is the setup that we have in terms of basic CSS selectors, right? So again, universal selector, element selector, class selector, ID selector, and multiple selectors. This is what we have seen now. Now, the next thing that we discussed when it comes to CSS, we have taken a look at this. Adding CSS is done. These selectors are also done, right? Then comes the text styles. I think, yes. So text styles, I will not go into the details here. We already know these. I have been using background color since the past few minutes. And then for changing the text color, we simply use color color. Then we discuss background images. Let me show you this one. This is actually pretty interesting. So let me put this, I think for this div, let's give it an ID of, let's say, hero div or hero section. The first section on the page is typically called the hero section. So let's styling the section. Then we have hash hero section, and then we can go ahead and style it. Now we can say background hyphen image, right? And then we have to type in URL. And then within this URL, we have to type the path to the image. So it could be in our case, images/image demo. And then you can see the image shows up. Now, obviously, the image is very big in size, right? I think it was this image which we have down here, and we can only see one tiny portion of it. So to make the image smaller, we have a couple of other properties available for the background image, which is cover. So this is background size, and we can change the value. So auto is the default one. We can either use contain or cover. So if we put cover, then it will basically make it fixed in terms of the width. So when we use cover, what it will do is it will reduce the background width-wise. So it will be 100% of the width of the image. It will fit to that particular section. If we reduce the width of the section, then the background will also reduce. So for example, if I change this width to say 50%, then the image you can see is also reduced to 50%, right? So depending on the size of the section or container that we are applying the background image on, the size will differ. So this is the background size. We can also use contain. Contain will typically fit it height wise. If it needs, it will repeat it width wise. So again, contain repeats it height wise, cover repeats it width wise. Cover being used more of than content. Then we have something called background position. So right now you can see the default position is top, which is we have the top left and the top right. What we can do is we can change it. We can say center. So this will move the image as you can see. And now the center of the image is the focus. So there is some image at the top that is cut out, some image at the bottom. If the image is bigger and we focus on the center of the image. So obviously this will only work if the image is bigger and we need to use cover. Background position will only work with cover. Otherwise, it will not work, right? Then we can specify, for example, bottom and then right. So this will zoom the image on the bottom right. For example, similarly, we have left, bottom left, and then top left, top right. Those values are also there. So top right again focuses on the top part of the image. If the image was even bigger, this would be even more prominent, right? So it will move around. You can arrange it pretty much however you want. You can specify top, center, bottom, and then again left, right in top and bottom. So top left, top right, center, bottom left, bottom right. You can specify these values, image to be arranged. The default value typically is top, but we can use center or bottom as well. And that will focus on either the middle of the image or the bottom of the image as we want, right? Done. Now, then the next thing that we have in terms of the background position or the background image is repeat. The background image repeat, the default value is repeat. We can set it to no repeat. And this time if I use contain, it will still not repeat the image. As you can see, and if I just comment that out, you can see the image is only showing up once. If I comment out repeat also, then it will repeat as you can see. So we can specify no repeat. This would mean the image will only show up once and it will take up whatever space it, depending on height or width, whatever it is, it will take up that much space, right? Then we can specify if you wanted to repeat vertically, we say repeat Y. If you wanted to repeat horizontally, we say repeat X. So again, depending on the setup, we can actually go ahead and specify these. Typically, there was a time when pattern backgrounds were very popular and they were repeated, but now we don't really see that much. There are still a few cases, a few exceptions where very light backgrounds are there. But again, typically we don't see them much in today's setup, right? But yes, these are a few different background image related things. The most important one being background image itself and then background size. Now, it is important to note that in CSS3, which is the latest version of CSS, it also supports multiple background images. So we can actually specify multiple files like this, and we can actually add more images, multiple images like those. But then again, it's a complicated setup. You can decide which image shows on top of which image and how much area is required and all of that. You can check out the documentation for that. But yes, it is possible to add multiple background images, right? And you can do that by specifying multiple image URLs. Now, this URL can be just like an image source. So it can either be from a local image like what we have done, or it can be from the internet also, exactly like what we do with the image source. So if I just take the image source that we had earlier and I replace it over here, then this will become the new background. You can see, right? So I think this first image that we have, this was coming from an external link. So that becomes the background, right? So again, it is up to us which image we want to choose. I typically recommend using local images because again, if we depend on a server, right, then it is, if something goes wrong with the website or if that website is down for some reason, like maintenance or some repair going on, then it would mean that your website is also not working or your image is also not working because that website is down. So a good idea is to not have that kind of dependency on any other website and try to use local images. So download them and use them locally if possible. That is the better idea. Done. So this is our background images bit. And I think that is it in terms of the CSS that I want to talk about today. We will then move to box model and then other things eventually in the next session. But now I think let us go ahead and take a few project questions if you have any. So let me just go back to this slide, I guess. I'll just leave this be on the screen again. If you want to get the repository link, please get it from here. And now over to you guys for questions. So I'll give you 2 minutes to type all the questions in. I am looking at Zoom chat also and YouTube live also. Whatever doubts you have, please put them in the chat and I will answer them one by one. Let us take the questions one by one. So I'm starting with YouTube live first. There are 3, 4 questions. There are more questions on Zoom. So let me first cover YouTube live. So is there any last date for submitting the DB schema? We have already submitted the abstract. So there is no last date as such, but I would recommend that you try to finish it off this week so that we can focus on the implementation, which will take longer. So if possible, try to finish off the schema by this week, right, which is by Friday or by Saturday, so that we can focus on implementation next. So that is the first question. In our college, we cannot change the topic now. We cannot change the team also. So again, I think the link was in the chat only. Let me find it again because I will put it in the repository as well. Yes, there you go. I'm opening this up. So this is for you, Sheikh Nazim. Please look at the screen, right? So what you need to do is go to this link, click on check your team, and then search this by your registration number or your name. So once you find your details, you can find your project details from here. And then once you find the project details, then you can go back and find the project title matching that project detail. So you can then go to the hackathon to read more about it, right? I've told you how to figure out which project you are a part of and which team you are a part of as well. This is how you have to do it. So don't depend on anybody telling you anything. We have made it available to everybody. You can go to the link and confirm. Don't depend on your college mentor. Don't depend on your team lead, whoever it is. Please go to that link and confirm it for yourself. Next question, is it possible to write code in mobile? No. So this is Kumar Modala Pavan. Kumar, it is not possible to code in mobile. Yes, there are some apps that will help you do it in a very basic, limited sense, like HTML, for example, but you cannot code React or Express or MongoDB in mobile. So please make sure that you have a system with you, which you can use to work on the project. Then is there any last date for submitting the DB schema? I will check, Sandeep, I will check with the team. If there is a date, I will let you know in the next session. Done. What is DB schema? So Ganeshwari, DB schema basically is a So it will be like a table that you create, right, for all the different types of or all the different data items that your project will have. So for example, let us say that you're making an e-commerce website, then your schema could contain, let's say, user. So what are all the different details you want for the user, like email ID, password, address, phone number, profile photo, right? Then another entity could be, say, product. So what are all the details for product? So product name, price, title, description, sale, yes, no, coupon code, offer, whatever it is. Right? So that is basically your DB schema, where we just highlight or mention all the different properties of data items that we are using. Again, I have asked the team to give me a video which will explain how to create the schema and how to submit that. So as soon as I get that, I will upload it in this repository itself. So hopefully by tonight or by tomorrow, it should be uploaded. So please check this repository once today and once tomorrow as well. Again, I think in the report that I have shown you, I'm not sure if there is a schema over there. Let me quickly check that out. I think there should be some version of schema in the sample project report that I have given. Let me check. We can check the index. If it is in the index, it will be there. Yes, there is table design. Let's check. So that's on page 20. So they've directly made the table itself, but yes, it looks something like this. No, we don't need this SQL. The project uses SQL. So this is your schema, right? So you have book table, and then what all will the book table contain? Like user ID, email, password, first name, last name, that kind of stuff. So that's the idea. That is your DB schema. For coding, Yaneshwari, we are using MongoDB. So for your DB code, you have to write the code for MongoDB. So remember how I told you, we have to create a schema and then create a model. That is what code you have to write. Again, we have discussed that code in detail. I will show you where it is also. But I also have a video for that. You can check it out. So if you go to the repository, again, there is a video on Mongo. So this is for everybody. The database that we are using is MongoDB. So the schema code or the DB code that you have to write, you can refer to this video for that. MongoDB reference. This video will give you everything to do with your database. The sample that I just showed you, that is SQL. We did not discuss SQL. We discussed MongoDB. So we are using MongoDB in our projects. We don't have to use SQL. SQL is older and it's not used much anymore. But yes, so the code, let me also show you if I can find it. Yes, MongoDB fundamentals session 20. And over here, this is the schema. We have literally used the word also. So order schema, this was for orders that we took. Then based on that schema, we create a model. Based on that, we create the new order. And then we actually perform the insertion with order model.save. So again, I've explained this to you in the MongoDB sessions. We have created the schema. So please refer to that recording, or I recommend you refer to the project video instead. This will help you understand this faster. I've also shown you how to connect it to the backend in this video. So you can refer to this third video for the database setup. Done. Let's move to the next question. So now I'm taking questions from Zoom. In program book, we have to write about FSD or else about project topic. Rajesh, I think it should be FSD. I am not 100% sure though. Let me confirm. I will let you know. If anybody else knows, please share in the chat. In the project, in the program book, what do we have to write? Is it about FSD or about the project topic? I think it should be about the sessions that we are having. So that should be FSD. But again, I am not 100% sure. I will confirm this with the team and let you know. Bharat, abstract submission date is gone. It was Monday already. Now we are on Wednesday now. The submission date was already due by Monday. So the abstract submission date is over. Try to finish it off as soon as you can, probably today itself, try submitting it. It should not happen that the team stops accepting abstracts and then you again face issues with submission. So try to finish it off today, latest by tonight. Please finish it off. To submit this, please go to your tap and there you will find the abstract link, submission link. The abstract sample, as you can see, is available in the repository. Please refer to this sample, create your abstract, go to tap and submit it. I am looking at 2 features per person. So depending on however many people you have in your group, 2 features per person. Salim, I think people have just submitted the abstract. I don't think DB schema is a mandatory field over there. So try to submit the abstract if possible, because a lot of people have said that they have submitted abstract and schema is pending. So please submit the abstract from there, and then we'll figure out the rest of the schema part. Again, you will not receive abstract emails. So for whoever is putting this message, 210170314 that number, you will not receive an email. The abstract submission has to be done from TAP. So please log into TAP and you will find a link over there. Yes, Santi, Raju, it is mandatory to make a project because your university will require you to submit it. So yes, you have to make a project as well. It's fine, Arsima. I think if probably something is wrong in your answer, or maybe you're not uploading the correct file, that is why it's not taking any submission. Otherwise, the assignment should work fine. But either way, try to focus on the project parts for now. We can worry about the assignments later. Also, Venki, even if you are working with a book website project, whatever it is, your schema will be based on one object. So you can just write the code like I showed you a sample. You can just write the code for one book entity and that will be your schema. So again, Kumar, you have to do both front end and back end. This is true for all projects. All projects will require front end. All projects will require back end. All projects will require database. There is no project title that has been given to you which only requires one. So you need front end, you need back end, you need database. Again, for people who are confused and have not attended sessions on front end or back end, for you guys, there are videos on all three things in the repository. Okay, so again, there is a React.js front end. I have made a project in this one and explained it to you in very much detail. Then again, this is for your backend. Again, I have made a project in backend and explained this in a lot of detail. Then there is MongoDB for database. Again, I have made a project in this video and explained everything to you properly. And then in this one, I have shown you how to deploy your front end. So for people who are confused, who have not attended the sessions or who could not find the recordings, whatever it is, please go to the repository and refer to these three videos. They will help you understand front end, back end, as well as database. Okay. And like I said, every project, no matter what project you're building, will have all three components. Again, so Bharat, please go to the link that I shared with you. I have shown you twice in this session itself. How can you find your team? How you can find your project? I have already shown you 2 times. In this session itself, I have shown you 2 times. Right. So please go to that link. Please put your registration number there. It will tell you which team you are a part of. I am not going to repeat it for a third time. Please watch the recording later on. Yes, I'm putting the link again in the chat. This is the link for you, Bharat. Please take it. It is trainings.blackbox.me and then project selection. I will show you once again, no problem. You can see this is what the link opens up. You have to click on this green button which says check your team. Once you go to this button, all team details are shown here. So please control, find your name, put Bharat, right? So I might have spelled it wrong. So please put your name over there, right? And then you can find your team from here. Once you find your team from here, you can go back to the previous page and then look at the project that you have allocated against your name. This will only happen if you have registered. If you have not registered before, please click on registration and follow the registration process. If you face any issues in that, the support email has also been given here, IIDT-team@blackbox.me. So please email the team. If you don't have access to the project, if you are not able to register also, please reach out to the team on this email and they will help you out. I hope I have answered that question. And yes, let me go back to Zoom. So the time is actually up. If you don't want to stay, you can leave. Make sure you fill the feedback. Right? The feedback has already been shared on Zoom. We are just putting it on the YouTube live as well in just a minute. So if you want to leave, you can leave. But for people who have questions, please stay back. I will answer them one by one. I'm still going through the chat. There are 2, 3 questions left. So for people whose questions haven't been answered, I will be answering them now. No. So Pramila Gayatri, no. Again, I have mentioned this in the repository already. There are 3 aspects for submission of the project. The project report is one. The code submission, that's front-end code and back-end code in two separate repositories, along with Netlify deployment for front-end. These are three different requirements, and all of them are mandatory to consider your submission a valid submission. If any one of them is missing, then your project is still incomplete. So again, I have mentioned everything in the repository. Please check it over there. Then any tips about the project? So again, Ishwari, this is again from YouTube Live. I am still waiting for the formalities to be done, right? Just a second. So this is for you, Bharat. If your PIN number is not available in the list, again, like I said, there is a link. There is an email ID mentioned, IIDT-team@blackbox.me. So if you cannot find your number here, please drop an email to this email ID mentioning your issue. The team will respond to you within 1 or 2 days. So yes, if you are not able to find your name, no problem. Please write an email right away and send it to the team. Done. Again, so Rajesh, I've done this already. I am not doing it so many times. Once you open the link, very simple. There is a button directly check your team. Just go there. You will find your team list and look for your name. That's it. Very simple. It does not require 5 times explanation. The link is available in the chat. Please get it from there. I will also add that link to the repository as well. And done. Yes, coming back to the questions on YouTube Live, there are 2 questions there. Number one, how to run GitHub project in VS Code. So Madhu, you can't run GitHub project in VS Code. You can actually integrate that in VS Code. So from the terminal, you can do push, pull, all of those commands, but there is no GitHub project. Okay. GitHub is just a place to store your code. You cannot create your project on GitHub. So I'm not sure what you're trying to ask here, but yes, so you can connect to the repository in VS Code, but there is nothing called GitHub project as such. And Sandeep, I will get that assignment removed. I don't think we have not covered Django or Spring Boot. Django is a Python-based backend framework, and Spring Boot is a Java-based backend framework. So we have not covered them in this course. So I will have them replaced with an Express project if needed. But yes, you don't have to worry about that submission. Done. And Parvati, everybody has to submit the abstract, not just your team lead. Everybody from the team has to individually log into your respective app accounts, and you'll be able to submit the abstract from there. Please make sure that you submit the same abstract. It should not happen that 3 people from the team submit 3 different abstracts. That will not work. Again, Shravani, the abstract submission link is available in tab. Please log into tab. You will find the link over there. And done. Those are all the questions in the chat. Now I'm not repeating anything that I've already discussed. Just one quick thing I will do is I will just add that check team details thing to the repository and add it at the top itself. Details. Done. So in the repository, I have modified the thing. The first thing I have written is your check team project details link. I think that should be very obvious and you should be able to check it out. Again, I recommend you watch out these 3-4 videos before you start working on the project, before you actually start coding the project, right? So that you get a good refresher on everything. Anyway, we are still refreshing as well. We are still discussing the concepts again as well. But still, I would recommend if you want, you can check these out as well. These will be smaller videos and it'll actually help you get things done faster. Okay, I've asked the team to share the feedback links again, so they'll just send that as well. And yes, that is it for this session. I hope I've answered all the questions. Then I've given you the repository link again for who are asking this, Maheshwari. The link is now in the chat. Please get it from there. And yes, the team is just sending the feedback links in just a minute. Make sure you fill that in before you leave. And yes, that is it for this one. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. Let's continue on Friday. And again, we'll continue from where we left off today and hopefully finish off CSS. And then we'll move to JavaScript post that. So yes, that's it for this one. Have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.